All right, so I want to break down a pretty massive story, which is admittedly only tangentially related to hockey and the NHL. It has to do with sports betting and how it's about to change in America. Now, it seems like these rules will affect most prominently professional poker players and the like, but with the NHL being so tied to gambling and most of the big hockey social media channels, whether Spit and Chicklets or Steve Dangle, hawking gambling incessantly, there's a big crossover here. All right, you've probably heard of Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill, which actually just passed today. He probably will sign it into law tomorrow. Obviously, I've got my opinions on Trump. That's not the purpose of today's video. Within the bill, among many other things, there's a provision which heavily impacts the taxation of gambling winnings. The rule specifically says bettors will only be allowed to deduct 90% of their losses against 100% of their wins in any given year. So let me explain how this all works. And as a note, I'm a Canadian and many of you guys are as well. Things are different here. You only pay taxes on gambling winnings as a Canadian if you're a professional or if it's business income. In the US, however, everyone pays tax on gambling winnings. I'll read directly from the IRS. Gambling winnings are fully taxable, and you must report the income on your tax return. Gambling incomes includes, but isn't limited to, winning from lotteries, raffles, horse races, and casinos. You may deduct gambling losses only if you itemize your deductions and kept a record of wins and losses. The amount of losses you deduct can't be more than the amount of gambling income you reported on your return. So, in short, the way it worked in the past is, say you gambled $10,000 and won $15,000. You've got $5,000 of taxable gambling income. If you spent, which is far more common, $15,000 and won $10,000, you've got no taxable liabilities. Practically, and no, this is certainly not legal advice. I'm guessing many Americans simply don't declare their gambling income because it's probably not a whole lot of money. But I mean, it's something that could be caught in an audit, and technically they are supposed to. Anyway, the rule changes it so only 90% of the losses can be deducted. So let's look at a practical example. If you win $10,000 gambling, but also spent $10,000, only $9,000 can be deducted, so you're left with a $1,000 tax burden, despite the fact that at the end of the day, you're not up money. You could actually even be down and you'd have a tax burden. This is something that would especially affect professional gamblers, but say you won $200K and lost $210, this is an example given by ESPN, you only get to claim $189,000 in deductible losses, so you still have a taxable income of $11,000, which you're going to owe thousands of dollars of tax on, despite the fact that you're down money on the year. So those are the facts. What's my opinion? I'm not an American, so my opinion on the bill doesn't really matter, but I'm also biased. I don't like gambling. I think gambling has been propped up through lobbyist money and has infiltrated both American and Canadian societies to a point which is really unconscionable. And I will say, I find it very funny that all these barstool sports types and these professional gamblers have never had a thought about politics, how politics could affect the average person, until gambling becomes involved. Whatever. The claim is that these new tax rules will kill sports betting and professional gambling, like professional poker players, and I don't buy that. It does make the margins a little bit thinner, but I also question the degree to which this will affect the average person. The argument is that players are simply going to move to offshore gambling sites. That doesn't make sense to me. Whether you're gambling on an American site or some shady non-American site, you're still technically supposed to declare any winnings as income, so whatever. But to me, the bigger point is, we have to look at the purpose of tax policy. Man, it really is the off-season. You have to understand that, yes, the tax system is a tool to generate government revenue, but it's also a way for the government to incentivize or disincentivize certain behaviors. That's why you see tax benefits or carve-outs for things the government wants you to do, things which they see as benefiting society as a whole, whether that's putting your kids in sports or contributing to their education, to using certain types of savings programs or purchasing inputs for a business. Listen, I admitted I'm biased against gambling, and again, I'm Canadian, so technically my opinion on this doesn't matter at all, but I don't hate the fact that the government is deciding not to subsidize professional gamblers. The entire industry has infested our lives. There's so much money being tossed, and it provides no societal benefit. And I'm not saying gambling should be banned. I think people should have the freedom to do what they want generally if it doesn't hurt anyone else. But it's kind of insane to me how much regulatory leeway gambling has gotten. If it were up to me, I don't think I would allow any deductions for sports betting at all. I don't think I'd allow any deductions for anything that's primarily a game of chance. So yeah, how this will end up affecting things, I don't know. I suspect that more of an impact will fall on professional poker players and sort of that area of gambling entertainment than sports betting, which again, are people declaring their sports betting income in the US? I don't know, but I doubt it. Anyway, that's my take on the situation. I'm not trying to insult anyone who enjoys gambling or is against these ideas, by the way. If it comes off that way, I do apologize, but I really do look forward to reading your comments on everything down below. Off-season content, baby. If there's anything else you'd like me to talk, let me know. I'll see you guys soon.